By the end of Total Drama Island, more than half the characters had begun new relationships. Goth girl Gwen had fallen for musician Trent, the delinquent Duncan had fallen for the overachieving Courtney, party animal Jeff fell for the surfer girl Bridget, big fun Owen was paired up with crazy girl Izzy, dumb princess Lindsay fell for the athlete Tyler, and eye candy Justin fell for himself. In planning the next 2 Total Drama seasons, 2 big mistakes were made. First, they reused the season 1 cast instead of introducing a new one. This meant they now have the difficult task of adding on to everyone's character arcs without undermining them. The second mistake we can blame on the network. It was requested that some of these couples be broken up.
They're really aware of the fact that this show is made primarily for kids, and they want to make sure that the messaging matches all around. One of the things I asked really early on was, don't let the romances get too crazy and too romantic, because kids go out with other kids, they break up, they fall in love another time. That's just how life is, and let's not make some big married for life romance. So actually, Athena might kill me, but breaking them up was a network request. And we kind of thought, well, it's okay.
Network request.
A network request. And I mean, when I say network request, well, she's our friend too, and she did a lot of thinking about it, and she said, let's just show what kids are like when they do date. Because most people don't marry the person that they started dating when they were 16.
Over the course of the following seasons, Total Drama Action and Total Drama World Tour, Gwen and Trent, Duncan and Courtney, and Owen and Izzy were all broken up. Fans of the show generally agree that the manner in which these relationships ended was disastrous for all parties involved. Now, maybe I wouldn't be saying this if the relationships were terminated in less frustrating ways, but I have to ask, was it worth it just to make the show more realistic? The story of Lilo and Stitch, reduced to its core elements, is about a broken family trying to work things out so that social services won't separate them, who inadvertently adopt a monster dog who makes everything worse. The happy ending is for the monster dog to become a loving member of the family and for all of them to be able to stay together. And that is how the 2002 movie ended. In 2025, Disney made 2 big mistakes. First, they reused Lilo and Stitch instead of introducing a new story. This meant they now have the difficult task of...
It's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
The second mistake we can blame on the writer and director, because they have publicly taken credit. The remake of Lilo and Stitch introduces the idea that older sister Nani aspires to earn her degree in marine biology, an idea that did not exist in the animated film. The new version alters the ending so that Nani willingly gives Lilo to foster care so that she can leave the state to go to college. Fans of Lilo and Stitch generally agree that the manner in which this remake concluded was disastrous for all parties involved. I don't know why the creative team decided to make this change. I am aware that Don Fleischerkamp said something about expanding the meaning of Ohana to reflect Hawaiian values of extended family and community. There are 2 larger conversations going on that led us towards that ending. We wanted to expand the meaning of Ohana and ground it in traditional Hawaiian values of collectivism, extended family, and community. Chris, who's Hawaiian, made a really important observation about the original early on in our discussions. He didn't buy that the 2 orphan sisters would just be left to fend for themselves. He said neighbors, church groups, aunties and uncles, all these people would step in. That's just the Hawaii I know and grew up in. That led him to create this character of Tutu, and she ultimately takes Lilo in as Hanai, which is this culturally specific term and tradition that is a form of informal adoption. It isn't about blood or paperwork, but love and responsibility for the greater good and for one's community. A lot of Hawaiians who've seen the film have picked up on that reference to Hanai, and they love that. It's this uniquely Hawaiian answer to the question of who shows up when things fall apart, and that idea of informal adoption. It shows the broader community's willingness to sacrifice and do whatever it takes for these girls and for their ohana. I think you can't satisfy everyone with these remakes. You are treading on hallowed ground when you make one of these, because these are films people grew up with. and I'm one of them, and I totally understand it. But we didn't want to just restage the beats of the original film, as much as we both loved it. We wanted to tell a story that's honest about what it means to lose everything, and still find a way forward. People do get left behind, like what Nani says, and it's incumbent upon the community to make sure that they aren't forgotten. But I find his explanation to be unsatisfying. Also, I know that creatives sometimes just say things to the press to defend their decisions, and what they say isn't necessarily the whole truth of what happened behind the scenes. Also, if Hawaiians are so collectivist-minded, then why didn't Nani's friends and neighbors step in to help before the state got involved? In the story they wrote, no one helps until after the state takes custody of Lilo. If the intention was to show community togetherness, then that message was poorly executed. Before reading these claims, I wondered if there was some discomfort with the animated film's disparaging attitude towards social services. In the original, social services are represented by a large, stern, intimidating Cobra Bubbles, who's presented as an antagonistic force for half the film, with Nani terrified that he's going to take her sister away if she can't convince him otherwise. Of course, he later shows his soft side, and it becomes clear that he just wants what's best for the people under his jurisdiction. But if you take a superficial look at the film, one could understandably get the impression that child services are meant to be the bad guys. That could explain the remake's decision to replace Cobra with a new face for social services, a nice, friendly lady whose appearance and demeanor inspire no sense of fear or intimidation. And then we just end with social services helping take care of Lilo, and everyone acts like that's a good thing. And if that's the motivation, I can kind of sympathize. I mean, I certainly don't think social services are evil. I don't think foster care can never be the answer. But I do think it's never ideal, and that's my issue. It's not ideal. If a child's guardian is abusive, neglectful, or unloving, then they should be separated. But none of that is the case with the Palakis. Nani's just a teenager struggling to manage a household by herself. She loves Lilo, and Lilo loves her. Nani is shown to be a caring, diligent, responsible guardian, who mostly just suffers from a string of bad luck. So I, as a viewer, want to see them be able to stay together, especially knowing all they've recently lost, because keeping the family together is always the ideal. Fleischerkamp's words do carry the implication that he thinks the altered ending is more honest, and I guess it's more realistic. I know things don't always work out ideally in real life. I know not every poor family manages to make ends meet. I know most people won't marry their high school sweetheart, but I don't come here for realism. Realism isn't the point. The point is ideals. The purpose of many of our stories is to promote ideals, to send the message that when you do the right thing, when you learn the right lessons, when you make wise decisions, you will be rewarded. That's how many of our stories, especially our children's stories, play out. This isn't a promise that doing the right thing will get you everything you want, any more than Proverbs 10:27 guarantees that everyone who fears God will live longer than everyone who does not. Sometimes you will do everything right and things still won't turn out the way you'd wish. But you are more likely to get positive outcomes when you do the right thing. A good person is more likely to win favor with others, to stay out of trouble, to be surrounded by people who love him, to have some peace of mind with his life decisions. And if everyone did the right thing, then we'd all most certainly be better off, both physically and spiritually. So we want to promote good morals. That's why the good guys almost always win, and the bad guys lose. Not because it's realistic, but because it's aligned with the ideals we want to encourage. This push for realism at all costs is the same attitude that doomed Lion King 2019 visually. They were so fixated on making it look realistic that they sapped out all the color and wouldn't let the animals emote, because visually appealing things only exist in cartoons, you see. But why would this be something we want? How is this better? What is so wrong with idealized, attractive lions that can smile? Why does realistic always have to mean more cynical? The real world does sometimes look pretty. Some people do marry their high school sweethearts and live happily ever after. Families do sometimes get through hard times while staying together. There's nothing actually unrealistic about these things. To be clear, I don't think these are inherently bad ideas. There is a time to acknowledge the complexities of life. If you want to tell a story that says going into foster care isn't the end of the world, there are ways you can do that, but this was not the appropriate time to insert that message. You don't take a story all about family unity and then change the ending to have the family split up. When you do, you violate the ideals of the story you're adapting. This doesn't improve the story, it just makes it more depressing. Idealism is good. We yearn for beauty. We yearn to fall in love with a girl and live happily ever after without having to experiment with 12 other girls first. We yearn to provide for our families and to always have them close by. We yearn for good to triumph over evil. Stories with idealistic endings give us something to aspire to. We may not reach these goals as consistently as our fictional heroes, but we are absolutely better off for having those goals to aim for. Perhaps audiences benefit less from being reminded how unfair the world can be, and more from being shown what good can come to those who work hard and do what's right. Perhaps a simple story about a girl who just wants to take care of her sister is enough to give us the encouragement we need. Or you could just leave finished stories alone and write new stories with new characters in which you can engineer the story to send whatever message you want while still coming to a satisfying conclusion. Just a thought.